Welcome back to the show. My name's Anthony Alford, and you are watching the Alf'Dawg Show's State of Emergency. We are, at this point, 13 days away from move-in day to Bowling Green. We are 13 days away. I just want to end on this point on baseball, because nothing's going to change until we get a new commissioner and new people running that sport. Nothing's going to change. The sport, it'll be okay if the Yankees and the Red Sox are competing for a championship. Things will be okay. But if we have a World Series between Tampa Bay and San Diego, Lord knows we're in trouble. And those are two very good baseball teams. Very good baseball teams. But Lord knows, if those two teams meet up, we are in deep, deep trouble. But until there's new people running the sport of baseball who understands that you have to advertise your players that's playing. You have to understand that parity is a good thing. And there are going to be some years where the Yankees and the Red Sox are not in it. In those years, the ratings may not be as high, but it won't be so low if you establish who's on those teams and you establish personalities. You have to do that. You have to do that in order to be successful. You can't rely on certain teams to be in it at the end. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. Now, basketball, let's just say this right now. The free agents, you saw how the free agents run the show. Owners have no control over what's going on. None. You saw how what happened with the free agency class this year. Now, let's not take out of context how that was done and what was at stake here. This was by far the top free agent class ever in any sport, ever, that you will ever see. So you're going to get another talented one next year. But this was a good one. And really, it wasn't really much owners could do about it. But, again, like I said before, sports is kind of a copycat type thing. Players, they see this guy again, and it's negotiation of business. It's economics of business. You see this all over. If one employee sees this guy getting this much money in a contract with these incentives, then the very next year, where their contract is up, they're going to say, well, if that guy makes this much money, and I'm just as good as that guy, or I'm better than that guy, then there's no way that you're going to pay me less. Because otherwise, I can just go somewhere else that will pay me more. I talked about, with baseball, the lack of parity. Basketball, football has the most parity by far. By far, the most parity. Basketball is kind of in the middle, because the NBA right now is at its highest point because the Lakers are dominating and the Celtics are at the top of the league. And, they're dominating. But before, the NBA was in the stage where when the San Antonio Spurs were dominating, people were watching the championship rounds. People were not watching. And since the 80s, it's hard to believe this, but since the 80s, there's only been 7 NBA champions. But there's the thing, though, about the NBA. You know, people will watch the playoffs, though. People will watch the playoffs because because you could recognize the players. People will watch the playoffs. People will watch All-Star Weekend. The entire weekend, not just the game, but All-Star Saturday night, and even the Rookie Challenge. People will watch that because they see, what do they see? They see, I keep getting alerts here, guys all over the league, all over. It was something, you know, LeBron and the Cavs versus Wade and the Heat. Derrick Rose and the Bulls against Darren Williams and the Utah Jazz. Even the mid-market matchups matter because you have that star player. And the NBA does an excellent job of advertising those players. Unlike baseball. At least when San Antonio was in the finals and were dominating, you could at least, you may not have cared for the personalities or the players, but you could at least identify them. You at least knew who Tim Duncan was. You at least knew who Tony Parker was. Okay, how many people know about B.J. Upton of the Tampa Bay Rays? How many people know about him? He is an unbelievable personality, but nobody knows him. Except those who are not Tampa Bay Ray fans and those who really, really follow baseball closely. But you don't have to be Einstein to know who Tim Duncan is. You really don't have to be Einstein to know who Kobe Bryant is. Or who Dwayne Wade is. Or who LeBron James is. Or Amari Stoudemire. You know, and the list goes on and on and on. But now the NBA has moved on to a new trend that actually was not started by the Miami Heat, but was actually anticipated. That's not even a word. Intensified by the Miami Heat. Or, no pun intended, heated up by the Heat. A trend that actually started with the Boston Celtics of putting 3 top-tier caliber players together on one team to win a championship. Now, when the Celtics did it, it was acceptable because they was the only ones that did it. And then plus, here was 3 guys who came together who have never even won a title. And they were respectable players. You know, Kevin Garnett, even though the Timberwolves sucked the last few seasons he was there, he didn't want to leave Minnesota unless there was an absolutely perfect situation for him to win a championship somewhere else, which it was. That's why fans over there in Minnesota is still on good terms with Kevin Garnett. Same deal with Ray Allen. And it's still Paul Pierce's team. But, again, you have heard in the past shows my, dislike of how the formation of Miami Heat has came together. Unbelievably, there's only 2 players that was on the roster for Miami last season that's coming back this year. 2 guys. The trend now, before it used to be Michael Jordan against Magic or Larry Bird. You wanted to beat, Jordan versus Barkley. You wanted to see two of the very best go against each other to see who is the best. But now, you got guys who who are best friends, top caliber guys, now trying to compete for a championship. So the parity now is limited. It is limited. Now, if Miami, I said this before, if the Heat and the Lakers meet up in the finals, that is phenomenal. That is great for the NBA. That is great for the casual fan. You got superstar talent all over the place. But if your finals, if your NBA finals is the Atlanta Hawks versus the Denver Nuggets, no. No. Can't be. Can't be. When I come back, I'm going to wrap this up. I'm going to tell you, give you last thoughts to summarize all this, and then you'll see the logic that I pointed out to you, and we'll wrap things up when we come back here on the Alf'Dawg Show, State of Emergency in Sports Special.